Hi, my name is Rose Taylor, and this is my story. My story with God growing up is that we went to church when I was really little, and then once my parents got divorced, we kind of stopped, but I never really had any consistent beliefs. It wasn't until I got to college when I kind of formed my own ideas and beliefs, and we were just driving around looking for places, and we were at a stoplight and we were getting ready to take off, and at the last second I happened to glance over to my right and I noticed that there was a for rent sign and it was a big house, so we're like, hey, let's go check this out. So my friends and I checked out the house, and everything worked out to where we ended up getting the house to live in my sophomore year. And it just so happens that the landlord happened to be a pastor at a church. He ran a college class and invited us out, and my initial thought was, no thank you, I'll pass. I guess the only way I would go if you would lower our rent a little bit, but that never happened. One of my roommates really wanted to go, and she begged me and begged me and begged me, and I was just so resistant. I did not want to go, but finally I gave in and I said, fine, I'll go this one time and that's it. Well, we ended up going, and I remember one of the first people I met was Christy Hardy. She's a hard person to forget, but I actually really enjoyed it, and we started going again and again and again, and I started to just have questions about who this Jesus was and what it really means to have a relationship with him and what that all entails and what that looks like, but I was actually afraid to ask about that. So I mentioned it to one of my roommates, and he recommended that I just pray about it. So I remember I went home to St. Louis visiting my family. It was a Saturday night. I remember just praying to God for my first time that I would not be afraid to ask these questions. I was standing at a table, and the pastor comes up, and it was like a movie. Everything was blurred out except for him, and it was slow motion coming towards me, and I was thinking in my head, oh no, what's going on? What is he going to ask me? And he comes up to me and he goes, Rose, do you have any questions about salvation? And I just remember my mouth dropping and just thinking oh my gosh, I just prayed this a few days ago, and here he is coming up to me asking me, do I have questions? And I did. So I remember going back to the kitchen, and we talked through it, who Jesus is and what it means to have a relationship with him. And I don't even remember everything that he said. I just remember crying and knowing I needed to ask for forgiveness and ask Jesus into my life. I was still living for myself. I was still doing things that pleased me, that made me feel good, that I just wanted to have fun and just do whatever I wanted to do. I don't think I truly surrendered to what God had for my life, and it wasn't until a year later that same pastor challenged us to read through James, and this was actually the first time that I've ever picked up my Bible and started reading it, and that's when I got to James 4. Humble yourself before God, resist the devil and he'll flee from you. Come close to God and he will come close to you. Wash your hands, you sinners, purify your hearts, for your loyalty is divided between God and the world. Let there be tears for what you have done. Let there be sorrow and deep grief. Let there be sadness instead of laughter, and gloom instead of joy. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up in honor. And I just remember reading that over and over again, and I realized my loyalty truly is divided between the world and God, and I was still living for the world. I was still doing what pleased me and whatever I wanted to do, and I felt like God was just giving me one of those spiritual spankings, And so that was that moment when I realized I am ready for God to use my life in whichever way he wants. It wasn't until I started to mature in my faith that I started to discover my purpose and the plans that God had for my life. I knew that I had a love for God, I knew that I had a love for nursing, and I knew that I had a love for traveling and experiencing new cultures, and I kind of had that aha moment where I was like, oh, I could be a missionary nurse. And so I ended up doing 3 months in South Africa. After that, I knew I wanted to go long term, and so here I am now, 10 years later, going to Niger, which is in West Africa, with my husband and my little girl, and we're learning what it means to give up the things you love so that others can know that they're loved by God and that they can find their purpose in him.